And we are live. What's good, Chacha Man? DL Saint. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I really want to know podcast. Yes, we're doing another live. We're doing another quick one. We're doing a really quick live. I saw something that I ain't gonna lie to you. I didn't believe when I saw it. And it's News Nation, and it was a report that the government of Cuba fired on and deleted 4 Americans in a speedboat. We got to talk about this. And we are live. What's good, y'all? Welcome to the I Really Want to Know podcast, y'all. Get some indeed. But I tell y'all, when I saw this article, I saw the report in my feed, I'm kind of squinting and I'm looking at it. Like, is that right? Listen to it real quick, just a little bit. And I went right to news media. So went to NPR, and the Associated Press is definitely reporting that this happened, guys. So Associated Press, man, right here. This was as of 5:13 p.m. Cuba says it deleted 4 people aboard a Florida registered speedboat who fired on soldiers. Right. So this is reporting, like, this is what's out here. This is what's out here, man. So I'm still kind of like awed by this, man. Havana. This is out of Havana. Cuba's government said Wednesday that its soldiers deleted 4 people aboard a speedboat registered in Florida that opened fire on officers in Cuban waters. Cuba's Interior Ministry issued a statement that provided few details about the shooting, but noted that the boat was roughly 1 mile northeast of Cayo Falcones off Cuba's north coast. It was unclear if any U.S. citizens were on board. The government provided the boat's registration number, but the Associated Press was unable to readily verify details of the boat because boat registrations are not public in the state of Florida. Officials said 1 Cuban officer was injured, 4 suspects deleted, and 6 others injured. It wasn't immediately known what the boat and its occupants were doing in Cuban waters. All right, so there you go. There you go. That's what I will link in the description below the that information. The article goes on. I'll link it in the description. So as a matter of fact, I'll just put it in the chat. I'll put it in the chat as well, so you guys can go and read this on your own. So it looks like a boat with the American registry was a mile off the coast of Cuba, like definitely in Cuban waters, and the people in the boat fired on Cuban officials who probably came to challenge them and find out what's going on, like, what's this boat doing? And the Cuban officials fired back on the boat, deleting 4 people and wounding 6 others. Right. So it's like 10 people on this boat. And, so it becomes, well, what was going on? What were they doing? Hey, man, it's probably a poor man's rescue. Probably some people going down there trying to get their family or friends out of Cuba and get them probably to the U.S. or something like that would be my guess. But, the Cubans, they protect their island. What am I going to say? So what I want to do now is I want to find that News Nation thing that I saw. So I'm gonna change this up real quick, guys. I want to find that News Nation video if I can on what happened here. And I don't know, when I see like this, if looking for a reason to escalate in Cuba, if you're looking for a reason to take some sort of military action, something like this could be reason enough to do it. If that's what you're doing. If that's what you're doing. See if I can find that article or that video. Maybe I can find a different video. BBC. Let's see what the BBC has to say about this. 1 second. Let's see what the BBC has to say about this. And I apologize for the glitching, guys. You know, I'm still trying to work it all out over here. But this is BBC. This came out recently. So let's listen to what they have to say.
Authorities in Cuba say its Coast Guard has shot dead 4 people traveling in a U.S.-registered speedboat in an exchange of fire off the coast. Now, it comes amid heightened tensions between the U.S. and the communist state, with Donald Trump enforcing a near-total blockade of the island. Sarah Smith has more details live in Washington for us now. Sarah, what more do we know about all this?
Well, we know, as you say, that 4 people were killed and the speedboat they were on was registered in the United States. We don't know yet if they were American citizens, and that is fairly crucial. The information we've got came in a statement from the Cuban government, who said that a boat had been detected inside Cuban territorial waters and that when it was approached by border guards asking for identification, the crew on the speedboat opened fire. Well, the border guards obviously returned fire because the statement goes on to say that 4 of the aggressors on the foreign vessel were killed. We know that 6 other people were injured as well, who were then evacuated and treated for their injuries. This is particularly sensitive, and even more so if they were American citizens who were killed, because there are volatile relations between the United States and Cuba at the moment. The U.S. has actually blocked all oil shipments from Venezuela to Cuba, and that has created a real fuel crisis on the island. And the Florida Attorney General, who also wants to know more about this, has said today that they're launching an inquiry because the Cuban government can't be trusted on this. And he said these communists need to be held to account.
All right, so there you have it right there, man. So I'm not the only one sitting here thinking like, sounds a little bit fishy here. Sounds a little bit Gulf of Tonkin like what's going on here. But those are, you know, it's a lot of questions need to be answered. So you have a boat with U.S. registry in Cuban waters. You have people on the boat who fired at Cuban officials. Cuban officials returned fire. People were deleted on the boat. 4 people, 6 other people were wounded. But we don't know the nationality of the people who were on that boat. And that's the big thing. And no one seems to be saying anything in Washington. Let's see if we can get an American news outlet talking about this. CBS, NBC. Let's look at NBC. This is 2 hours ago. Let's see what NBC has to say about all
breaking news right now, and reports of a deadly confrontation in Cuban territorial waters between Cuban troops and people on an American registered speedboat. Here's what we know at this hour. Cuba's Ministry of the Interior says, as they say, with a Florida registration, opened fire on Cuban border guard troops this morning. The ministry says it happened when the troops approached the American boat to request identification and that the commander of the Cuban vessel was injured. The ministry says the troops then returned fire, killing 4 people aboard that boat and injuring 6 others in the confrontation. The injured have been taken back to Cuba to be treated medically. Again, this is all coming right now from the Cuban government. So as we get more information, we will bring it to you. I do want to bring in NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez. And Gabe, this is such a serious situation because of the rhetoric between the United States and the Cuban government. Just recently, I think less than 2 weeks ago, the Cuban president, the leader of Cuba, saying that Cuba was ready for war with the United States in the wake of what's happened in Venezuela and that they were on alert for anything that might happen there. Again, sometimes these incidents happen in those waters. We should mention the location where this happened was very close to the Bahamian border as well, where there's usually lots of both drug smuggling and people smuggling as well. Cubans trying to flee the communist oppression there. What do we know right now coming from either our Coast Guard or the White House right now, Gabe?
Well, Tom, there are a lot of unanswered questions right now. We are out to White House officials trying to get any more details on this. But so far, as you said, all we know is from the Cuban side at this point. They say 4 people are dead and 6 others on that boat, which was registered in Florida, have been injured. And also, Tom, another border guard troop from the Cuban side was also wounded, according to the Cuban government. Now, this all comes, as you said, amid ramped up tensions between the two countries in the wake of the capture of Venezuela, as well as Nicolas Maduro. There have been significant fuel shortages in Cuba over the last few weeks. And there have been questions about what the U.S. plans to do next year. The president himself recently saying that he expects the Cuban government to fall. And Tom, right now, Secretary of State Marco Rubio is in the Caribbean in the island of St. Kitts and Nevis, meeting with Caribbean leaders. Again, we're out to the State Department as well for any comment. But Tom, a lot of unanswered questions here about who exactly was on that boat and what led to this confrontation.
And I mean, I'm here to just listening to this, like no one really knows what's going on. Like, do I think this was some sort of black ops, off the books, military style, mission? No, doesn't sound like it. Why do I say that? Because they got caught, and then they exchanged fire, and then the only people who got hurt, and the only people who got deleted were the people on the boat. So if you're gonna have the U.S. military involved in some sort of operation like this, and they decide to open fire, they're not going to be the ones who get hit. And the case that I will point to is the North Korean thing. When you had the SEALs doing some sort of sneak and peek in North Korea, and some boat rolled up on them, and the SEALs allegedly got on a boat and they neutralized the North Korean citizens who were on a boat, and kind of made it to where it'd be hard to find their bodies. Right. So that happened. You can look that up. So if you're going to get some former military guys or some black ops type dude or some off the books kind of stuff, it wouldn't go down like this, in my opinion. I just don't see it happening like this. This is maybe some criminal activity. These are some people who got kind of caught with their hand in the cookie jar, so to speak. Saw it's like you see the police and they just start firing at the police. And then, well, in this case, it wasn't police. It's, trained military, Cuban military type people, Coast Guard. They return fire. And generally, when you have a firefight like this, especially on the water, the people who are better trained are the ones who normally win. And, it sounds like the Cubans won. They had 1 person wounded. They deleted 4 and wounded 6 others on the boat, what would be the opposition boat. Score 1 win for the Cubans. So I don't think this was some sort of black op thing. But it can be used as an excuse to do whatever if, in fact, it turns out that there were Americans on the boat. So did the people on the boat have identification? There's going to be a whole lot of questions being asked. Like, okay, when they figure out what's up with the boat, did someone in Florida sell that boat to someone in some other country? Was the boat stolen? Like, it's so many different questions here. But I just look at this and, right away, the first thought that popped into my mind was, if this is true, this could be used as reasoning or justification to escalate military tensions or to even conduct some sort of military op. But it doesn't sound that way. Maybe that boat was there to pick up some people and try to bring them to the U.S. illegally. Maybe they were there to pick up contraband or some illegal drugs or whatever they were there to get, and it sounds like they just got caught. So let's listen to the rest of this.
Right now, the only information we're getting from the U.S. government is coming from elected representatives in Congress from South Florida who are putting this news out there. But again, we're not hearing from the State Department or anyone else just yet.
Not yet. Again, we're still awaiting any confirmation about who exactly was on that boat. But it comes as, there has been this huge military buildup on the other side of the Caribbean. And also the Trump administration has been really escalating its rhetoric towards the Cuban government. Secretary of State Rubio, of course, is Cuban American and has made a large part of his political career being very, wanting to topple essentially the Cuban government, the communist government there. But again, at this point, we do not have any details about who was on that boat.
We thank you. As we look at this map here, I'm going to bring in Jose Diaz-Balart. Guys, let's put that map back up. I want to show the viewers exactly where this is happening right now. Jose, talk our viewers through the location here, right? Because again, where you see that little white dot at the top of northwest Cuba, This is where the incident, according to the Cubans, happened, 1 nautical mile off those keys off the north of Cuba. So this is very close to the Bahamian border. Again, Sal Bank, which is an area people go to fish, but also people where they go to drop off sometimes Cubans that they're smuggling, Cuban refugees that are trying to leave the island. Jose, we can't stress enough, this is such a sort of strenuous time right now between the U.S. and Cuba, and Cuba has made it very clear they are on alert for any type of U.S. attack or any type of incursion that would happen in their country.
Indeed, Tom. And, you know, it's striking to remember sometimes that Cuba is 90 miles away from Key West. And so the proximity of the island to not only Florida, but to the Bahamas, which is really a skip and a jump away, there are a lot of questions. And so far, the only source about this incident comes from the Cuban regime. Important to recognize and also remember that that regime has oftentimes utilized humans for political purposes, sometimes releasing political prisoners when an American celebrity comes to the island, or some person who requests that some political prisoners are released. We have to also remember that it was the 24th of February, 1996, 30 years ago yesterday, that 2 small Cessnas from Brothers to the Rescue, a South Florida organization that was seeking rafters leaving the island, was shot down over international waters by the Cuban regime. 4 people were killed. 3.
All right, I didn't know about that, but you know, I don't keep my eye on what's going on, you know, with Cuba and Cubans, with respect to smuggling bodies across the water or whatever. And I do know, like, they changed the law. It used to be that if someone from Cuba was trying to get into America and they managed to get onto the beach, they got onto dry land, that they will be granted legal status right away. And under the Obama administration, that kind of went away. They call it like wet foot, dry foot. So basically, if they caught you on the water, they would send you back, immediately deported back to Cuba. But if you made it to land, you would be granted some legal status and you could stay. That's not the case anymore. So even if you made it across the water, you get into the U.S., with everything that's going on with immigration, which is something that, you know, like with Border Patrol and ICE, which, again, the president didn't even bring that up in the State of the Union address last night, which is the longest State of the Union address, I think, from what I understand, the longest address in the modern era. He didn't bring up that at all. He didn't bring up ICE, Border Patrol. He didn't bring up that. But if you were a Cuban and you come to America, you still will be kind of like hiding and trying to figure out how you can request some sort of asylum, and then you'll be worried that you'll get swept up and sent back to Cuba. So I don't know, man. I don't know. This is crazy. Like, this is you know, this is just lifing. This is how I see it. When I saw the story, I thought that it was false. It looks like this absolutely did happen. Doesn't seem like, I really thought like maybe this is some sort of false flag thing. It doesn't seem that way now. You get a little bit more information. It just seems like some smugglers got caught. That's what I'm thinking. Some smugglers were in the wrong place, and maybe they were the place where the Cuban Coast Guard didn't check that often. But because everything is going on, the Cubans have increased their patrols, and they probably just caught these people who were in the process of smuggling something. And then these people decided to fire on the Cuban Coast Guard, and it sounds like that was a mistake to fire on the Cuban Coast Guard like that. So, yeah, man, that's it. We'll keep an eye on it. You know, I will definitely link the videos in the description below. I'll link that article from Associated Press in the video in the description below. You guys can check it out. Let me know what you think in the comments. I think that I don't think this is a big thing. However, if Marco Rubio and the government decides to use this as some sort of reason for escalating tensions with Cuba, maybe showing some sort of show of force, I don't know. It could get ugly, but I don't see that happening. We'll see. We'll see if I'm wrong. Just wanted to throw that out there, guys. Hope you're having a good evening. I'll be back tomorrow for sure. I want to talk a little bit about the Medium Man, a YouTuber. I think you guys should check out. He was talking about some red pill stuff. So we'll talk about some red pill stuff tomorrow. And also we'll talk about Americans being underemployed. I've been wanting to run a show talking about that for about a week now. And I just keep doing other shows instead. So tomorrow I'm going to get that out the way. Just want to, Americans are suffering. this affordability thing is real. Americans don't have enough money to survive, really. Like they're surviving, but they're not living. There's a lot of pressure out there. And I just want to kind of show how there's so many Americans right now that are underemployed. People who are doing the gig economy and stuff like that, working themselves to death, and they just can't seem to make enough money, and things only seem to be getting worse. So we'll be talking about that tomorrow. Hope you guys have a good night. I'm DL Saint. This is I Really Want to Know podcast. Talk to y'all later. Peace.
Nothing like I've ever seen. It's just a thing of beauty.
Darn, that's the end.